So good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us your time. Hopefully you're not too cold. It's a cold old day in Aberystwyth today. We've got Josh with us this evening across in Cambridge. So very grateful for him to give us his evening and to actually help us understand a bit about what's available in England currently and the changes and the challenges. So I'm not going to delay anymore. I'm going to pass over to Josh and he'll take us. There will be questions or times for questions. You will see a Q&A box on the bottom of the screen there. Please type those questions in, type them as we go through the presentation. We will deal with them at the end tonight, so Josh will run through and there'll be, we'll pick up those questions at the end and then hopefully we can get you all sorted. Over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Darren. And thanks everyone for who's here this evening. What I'm going to do is I'm firstly going to try and share the right screen and make sure everything goes smoothly. So just bear with me, please, whilst I sort that out. And hopefully, Darry, you can give me the thumbs up once it's all right. Hopefully you can just see the presentation now.
Yeah, it's good, Josh. It's up.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us this evening. What we're going to talk about tonight is building resilience into your business and with sort of an eye on the agricultural transition, which has been happening since 2020, but obviously already taken hold of business incomes through that BPS reduction. So you will notice probably through my presentation that I try not to bore people with loads of words on slides and just try to keep it relatively light. So who am I and who is ADAS? ADAS is the largest UK agricultural and environmental consultancy, privately owned, and we do a hell of a lot of research in all sort of fields of agriculture and environment as well. So a really big business, heaps of different skills that I'm sort of lucky enough to be part of. And me, I'm Josh Brock. I'm one of the agribusiness consultants at ADAS. Got a bit of history of sheep farming, and that's my real passion is, which is why I sort of got in contact with Innovis, because I've always been admiring what you guys have been up to. So yeah, spent a fair bit of time in Australia and New Zealand farming, shepherding mainly, and also managed to finish a master's in agriculture last year. So trying to back up the practical with a bit of theoretical was the thought behind it, but we'll see how we go. So this evening's agenda, what is the agricultural transition and its impact? We'll talk through that, and then we'll start going through some sort of business resilience tools, which we're trying to sort of help farmers skill up on really, and what we think farmers should be trying to do to build that resilience into their business. Then we'll go through current knowledge of schemes, and I'm not sure about you guys, but it's very hard to keep up with it all. So I'm going to try and give you as much knowledge that I've sort of learned with the new updates that have come out recently. And hopefully you can take a bit of that away with you and sort of understand a bit more of what is on offer for you. And then we're going to talk about the Future Farm Resilience Fund and how it can help your business. And that's kind of how we're here tonight. The Future Farm Resilience Fund is sort of, helping a lot of farmers in England access sort of free consultancy. So we'll talk about that and what we're doing. And then we'll have, like Larry said, time for questions at the end. So next slide. So the agricultural transition. This is a pretty scary slide, but I like to kind of start with this to really sort of hit home how it's going to impact businesses. So if we look on here, all farm types, the average income of a farm on this slide is £37,000. And of that £37,000, 61% of it is provided by BPS, which we know is now being reduced significantly. So in 2023, so almost 50% down of what it was in 2020. And as we're talking to sheep farmers tonight, we're going to kind of talk about the load and grazing farms. So load and grazing farmers have an average income of £15,500, and BPS accounts for 14.5 grand of this. So it's, that is really going to start taking hold. So I'm sorry to start with that hard hitting fact, but it's, it is what it is, and we've got to start learning how we can overcome it. And hopefully a lot of farmers have started to adapt, but this is the hard truth of it, really. So what can I do with agricultural transition? So what we're going to go on to now is the sort of resilience tools that we're sort of helping farmers, use, utilize, learn, we're doing for them as well, and things like that. And these are hopefully tools that are going to help you overcome some of these challenges. So business fundamentals, business planning. I don't think there's a more important thing that you guys can be doing with your business. because really business planning is assessing where the business is right now, planning where it wants to go and how it's going to get there. And so whether that is a diversified income stream, whether that is your sheep enterprise or whatever else you've got on farm, it's having it written down formally. You know where you're going to go, having key performance indicators in there to really understand, step-by-step process of where you're trying to get to and how you're going to get there. And sort of, I think for a lot of farmers, probably myself included as well, it's all in your head. But then sometimes, it comes to the end of the season, it's kind of in your head. What were your aims? What were your targets? What were your goals? If it's not formalized, if it's not written down, how can you really measure yourself? And I've got a bit of a, in my head, it's not really much good if it's not down on paper, and you can't really hold yourself up to it. So I think that's the first and most important thing that farmers need to be doing, is formalizing that business plan of where you're going, how you're going to get there, and those sort of key performance indicators along the way. And then the rest of this sort of stuff we're going to go through now, these business resilient tools sort of fall into this business planning. So budgeting, budgeting of what you're hopefully going to achieve for your enterprise. We're breaking down, your breeding flock, and then you're breaking down your finishing enterprise, and you're breaking down your replacement ewes as well, and understanding what sort of each enterprise is hopefully going to make you output wise, then also what it's going to cost you with your variable costs as well. Because you start identifying what it's going to cost you, and you can start planning for how you can achieve it. And whether it's, a functional enterprise to be running, because that's the other thing, we're trying to assess how these enterprises are going to perform. So again, formalizing these sort of budgets are super, super important. And this is what I spend a lot of my time doing at work at the minute, writing these budgets for farmers so they can assess, what's going to make the money, what's not going to make the money. And we know, with everything at the minute, with it all being up and down, with the cost of fuel, cost of fert, cost of feed, everything like that, budgeting has probably never been more important than it is right now. So next tool that we really do a lot of is cash flows. And again, it all comes down to this not so sexy sort of umbrella of planning and numbers and understanding where our business is. So cash flows are looking at sort of the year that's coming up, understanding where the money needs to come from and where it's going to go on. So it is those costs of feed, if you're buying any feed in, fuel, all the other stuff, when you're going to be selling your stock, when you're hoping to sell your stock, when it's going to be fat, all that sort of plan, all that sort of stuff. So if you're planning this out formally, again, writing it all down on Excel or any sort of programs you can use for it, it's allowing you to understand how your year is going to run and how you can hopefully plan for any sort of shortcomings, sort of tight spots and things like that. So next tool, benchmarking. Now, I'm sure Innovis does do a lot of benchmarking, but we do a lot of benchmarking with farmers through our projects that we're running at the minute. And really understanding where a business can be or should be, I think, is really important. And we use a lot of data from Farm Business Survey. I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard about that, but it's a really good free it's a website that's run by, I think it's run by Promar now, but again, it's enabling farmers all over the UK to kind of understand what's achievable, what you should be spending, what you shouldn't be spending, what you should be selling, all that sort of stuff. And it sort of can be localized. So if you see on the screen here, what you've got sort of the average size of the farm. I think this is, I can't remember what sort of farm this is, but sort of number of farms you're being compared to is 59, if my eyes don't deceive me. The average size is 109 hectares. So you kind of get into so say you're a lowland grazing farm, you can either be small, medium, or large, dependent on sort of stock size, what you've got on the farm. And then it allows you to compare yourself with similar farms to understand where your business could be, should be, or where you're really excelling and where you could potentially, keep cracking on, because that's what a lot of this stuff is. Sometimes it can be just a really good pat on the back and going, bloody hell, I'm doing a good job, which I think is, again, a nice thing to hear. So what have we gone through so far? We've gone through business planning, formalizing that, cash flows, budgeting, and benchmarking. So there's a lot of things that we're doing for farmers a lot at the minute, and really, really key tools for farmers to be using. And it's, again, it's not the sexiest stuff to be doing, but for me, it's really, really important with BPS reductions happening, with the price of everything as well, and what you're going to get paid for those what you're producing. Understanding that is really, really important. I think I keep saying really, really important, but it is really important. So they're the number sort of things, and we're talking about these sort of tools that are available to you as a farm. And we talked about those sort of bits before, but also utilizing technology and software that's available at your hands. Again, it comes down to not in your head, not just written down on a bit of paper. Getting some software, using numbers, measuring to manage is really integral. And just to give you a sort of example, I've worked with a farm quite recently who has they've been recording some data now for about a year. And before, they were sort of selling these animals, these cattle at 18 months, and they were sort of working out what their feed costs were and how much they're getting paid for these animals and their bedding and all that sort of stuff. And they actually worked out through collecting data through a software provider that they can actually sell cattle at 12 months old instead of 18 months old for exactly the same margins what they're making, just because of the cost of food, cost of feed, cost of bedding and all that sort of stuff. So again, getting all this stuff down, using the tools that are available, recording weights, recording the amount of feed you're feeding them, how much it's costing you through these sort of programs is super important. I'm sure you guys being Innovis, producers, you are pretty weighing and sort of performance recording as well, which I think is bloody awesome. That's definitely what you should be doing. We do a lot of work with Xero, and Xero is a software or a cloud accounting software program. And what that really enables you to do, and what we're using it for our clients at ADAS, is that you can start breaking down, like we kind of talked about earlier with enterprises, breaking down what each enterprise is costing you. So again, if you've got your finisher, your lamb finishing enterprise, you've got your breeding flock enterprise, you can start recording, all those variable inputs for those enterprises, and then breaking it down. So then you can start really looking at what that cost of production is for that enterprise. And then, skills like that, especially if you're a mixed farm, being able to identify the enterprises that are outperforming others, could potentially motivate you to go, right, I'm going to increase the size of that one, I'm going to reduce the size of that one. But again, you cannot make these sort of decisions without having this sort of data. And, collecting data is, again, not what you want to be doing sometimes. You want to be out in the field doing what you're doing. But again, I think this sort of data now is super important. And embracing this technology which is available is really, you need to be doing it. And what we're helping a lot of farmers do, So next thing, and excuse the picture, my girlfriend didn't even recognize what this was, which was quite embarrassing. Hopefully everyone else does on the screen. Succession. We're talking about what's happening to the business now, but if you haven't got that stability going forward of knowing where the business is going to be, what the family wants to do, what your siblings, your children might want to do, how can you plan for that future? So I think having these discussions sort of proactively is again important. Talking to each other, having these formal conversations. Don't do it when you're all having round dinner one night. Have a formal conversation, a meeting where minutes are taken, so you understand what everyone wants. I think honesty is sometimes it's hard to do, especially if you spring it on someone. But if you're trying to prepare for your family's future, I think it's having these conversations. We sit around a lot of kitchen tables where people haven't always been honest, and then it gets to a sort of sticking point, or something's happened in the business and that future is unknown, and then it is even harder. It's about getting out in front of these things. And I know it's hard to be formal with family, but I think, for everyone's peace of mind, everyone's security for the future, it's what farmers should be doing more of. And I know it's one of those unspoken about things, succession, or when it's going to happen, who it's going to happen with, who's going to take on the farm, all that sort of stuff. But if you get out in front of it, there's never going to be any hidden sort of conversations. And that's, again, something we're doing a lot of, and instigating these sort of conversations, So hopefully we're going all right so far. And again, if anyone's got any questions, please do get them in the chat. That'd be good. And we'll get to them at the end. So we'll get onto the really, really fun stuff now, which is all these new schemes that are out there. And we're going to talk about sustainable farming incentive, the environmental land management scheme, which is the overarching sort of thing, local nature recovery, countryside stewardship. But I've also chucked in some slides on farming technology, FTEF is what I call it, because I can't ever remember what the 4 letters stand for. We'll also talk about animal health and welfare pathway as well, and how you can access that. So hopefully some of you might know, I'm sure you've been trying to keep up to date with it as much as you can, and it is tricky keeping up to date with it, which is hopefully why I can sort of fill in any blanks for you this evening. Environmental land management. So this is a big overarching new scheme which DEFRA has brought out through this agricultural transition and Brexit and everything like that. So at the minute it's kind of broken down into these sort of 3 schemes with some extra added bits on top of that as well. So first, what we're going to talk about is these 3 parts here. So the sustainable farming incentive, local nature recovery, and then landscape recovery. So the sustainable farming incentive. Now, again, there's been 6 new standards that have come out recently, and they have started to bring it out. They're not open for application yet. There is 3 that are currently open for application. And if you haven't heard about them, I'm just going to quickly go through them just so you have a bit of understanding about them. So the way that the SFI is going to work is that there's going to be individual standards that you can apply for. So after these new 6 come out, there's going to be 9 standards available to a farmer. Within each one of these individual standards, there's then going to be levels of application, which basically means points win prizes. You can then do certain things, and once you do those 3-4 things, you're going to be able to access a certain amount of money. So I'm going to talk to you, hopefully you're all sheep farmers. I won't sort of focus on the arable and horticultural stuff, even though there is quite a lot of it heavily in there at the minute. We're going to talk about stuff which is more grassland based and more what I think is applicable to sheep farmers. If you do want to talk about the arable and horticultural stuff at another time, all my contact details at the end, please give me a call, send me an email, I can give you a call, whatever. I'd love to help out whenever I can. So part of the first 3 that they brought out, which was last year, which are currently open for application. The first one is improved grassland soils. So that's the standard, and then the levels of the things that you can apply for underneath it. So the introductory offer of that for £28 per hectare, what you've got to do is test for soil organic matter, undertake a soil assessment and produce a soil management plan, and then have winter cover for at least 95% of your land in the standard. So that's £28 per hectare. And then for the intermediate, which is £58 per hectare, you've got to do all the above, as well as establish or maintain herbal lays on 15% of the land. Now, I hear a lot of farmers saying, it's not worth it, it's not a lot of money in it, all this sort of stuff. But I'd imagine most of you are probably doing all of that, most of that, if not all of it already. So it's kind of money for old rope, really. Even if it's not a great deal of money, it's still some money coming in, which is going to start mitigating that loss. And I think that, we all want to sit here and moan about it and it's not good enough and all that sort of stuff. And fair enough, let's give that that feedback back to DEFRA. But it's also not worth not applying for and making the most of it, because, we can only, you got to make most of it, really, because it's a pot of money that you can apply for. And if you don't use it, it's not gonna be there, and then hopefully we can sort of keep giving feedback to DEFRA. So that is the improved grassland soils. There's also moorland and rough grazing, which is introductory offer only at the minute, which is £148 per agreement per year, plus £6.45 per hectare. I'm not sure if anyone on the call is, has any moorland or rough grazing or open country or anything like that. But to do that, to access that money, assess moorland, to verify soil type, peat depths, and associated vegetation. So again, it's money to be applied for. If you are in that sort of thing, why not make the most of it, So then we'll go on to the sort of 6 new standards now. So there's the hedgerow standard, integrated pest management standard, nutrient management standard, arable and horticultural land standard, which I probably won't touch on, to be honest with you, because I don't think it's applicable to you guys. But again, if it is, give me a call, we can go through it. The improved grassland standard, and then the low input grassland standard. And so there's a lot going on with these standards, and I've got them all in front of me, but I don't want to bore you half to death about every single thing. But what I will say is that it feels to me that a lot of the new 6 standards that have come out aren't that beneficial for probably lowland or upland farmers. You can make the most of the hedgerow standard, so you can assess and record condition of your hedges, £3 per 100 meters, and that's on one side. So if you do 2 sides, you're doubling your money. Manage the hedgerows so there's a range of different heights. That's £10 per 100 meters on one side. So again, you can double your money, or if your neighbour's doing it, you can just take your side. and then also maintain or establish new hedgerow trees. So there are at least one tree per 100 meters, and that's £10 per 100 meters both sides. So again, if you've got hedgerows, why not apply for it? You know, it's money that's there to be accessed. Now, the other ones that we're going to go through, the integrated pest management standard is a flat rate of £989 per year. And if you've got mainly grassland, creating an IPM, creating a integrated pest management plan isn't going to be, you know, that difficult, I don't think. And if it's for almost £1,000, you know, let's do it. Let's make the most of it. The nutrient management standard, exactly the same as the one above, the IPM management plan. It's just a flat rate of 600 or just short £589 per year. But again, nutrient management plan for me, it's allowing you to manage, you know, what fertilizer you should be using, what your soil needs to make it more productive. So if you're getting paid to do that, hopefully you can also then reduce your fertilizer, you know, increase your grass growth, increase whatever you're growing, and then hopefully it's going to benefit the rest of your business. Because the way that I'm trying to see these sort of all of these schemes really is how can you build it into your business so it's going to complement it, and that's not necessarily increasing you know, production, but also then assessing what parts of the business, what parts of your farm mightn't be as productive as the others. So why even bother trying to make them productive? Let's stick it in a scheme and make some money out of it and focus our attention on something that's going to make us, you know, or it's a part of the farm that's going to make you some more, you know, be more productive. And that then kind of brings me on to the improved grassland standards, as well as the low input grassland standard. And for me, low input grassland is just it kind of winds me up, because like for me, I want to be as productive as possible. I want to push my sheep on, I want to push my cattle on, whatever I'm doing. But again, it kind of comes down to what parts of the farm aren't productive. If they're not productive, what's the point of sticking a load of nitrogen on them? Let's stick it in a low input grassland standard. Let's get paid some money to do something that will hopefully make you more money in the long run. And then it kind of comes the same as the improved grassland standard. And so this is on sort of grassland again, which hopefully, well, not hopefully, I shouldn't say hopefully, but might not be making you as much money. So you can put things like take grass and field corners and blocks out of management. You can get £333 per hectare for that. Maintain improved grassland to provide winter bird food. So that just means pretty much you're not going to graze, and you're not going to mow a certain bit of it's usually around the margins, maybe around the hedges. You get paid a lot of money for that as well. And again, it's about building these sort of schemes into your business where it's going to be worth more money to you put it in a scheme than it is by, you know, putting it into full-blown production. And that comes back to, you know, that stuff we were talking about with that data collection, understanding, you know, the numbers of even breaking it down to fields or breaking it down to however you can really, to understand what parts of the farm are making money and what aren't. And then if we can highlight that through that, you know, gross margin enterprises and things like that, we can start assessing, bugger it, let's put it into one of these schemes that's going to make us more money, you know. So I'm sorry they're not that conducive. Some of them aren't that conducive to lowland grazing. I'm really hopeful that there are going to be some coming out in the future. But again, it's about making the most of what's there and making it work within your business. I'll just quickly list off what's sort of hopefully going to come out in 2024 and 2025 as new standards. So in 2024, we've got agroforestry, low and no input grassland, even though they've just brought that out, so that's not accurate. Moorland and rough grazing, so there's going to be more standards added to that. Water body buffering, farm and biodiversity, so that's 2024. And in 2025, we've got an organic standard coming, on-farm woodland, orchards and specialist horticulture, heritage and dry stone walls. Now, I don't know any more about them than those titles that I've pulled off the internet, but you know, more information is going to be coming back. And what is, you know, what I'm hoping, and I will do a bit of work for the National Sheep Association. I manage the Eastern region for those guys, and I also, with my work hat on, have been organising some events with DEFRA. And for me, you know, I think before they've had quite a bad name, but they're definitely trying to become more farmer facing, more on the farmer's side. So their aims of this SFI are sort of more regular payments. They're going to be quarterly. There's not going to be any penalties anymore. And farmers will be able to apply without support. The new application scheme for the SFI is meant to be super simple. You can type in where your farm is, and it will put up on a map what what parts of your farm you're able to access certain fundings for. So I think that hopefully with the sort of NSA, we did an event with DEFRA, and this, I've got a DEFRA event next Tuesday, next Thursday. They're actually coming out and talking to farmers face to face, which I'm trying to take a bit of confidence from, that they want to be farmer facing, they want to take that feedback on board, you know. So hopefully, you know, we get the feedback back and they can change things that we might not like, and hopefully there's going to be some more good stuff in there, because we are starting to creep up to, you know, trying to get some of that money back from that BPS loss. So next slide, I rattled on enough there. If there are questions on that, I think you know, there's so much information there and it is hard to keep up with. What I would advise actually on the SFI, I'm not sure if anyone's got a pen and paper with them now, but, and if you haven't signed up for it already, there's something called the Future Farming blog. And it's a DEFRA blog, which they release. There's almost updates coming out weekly. And it's basically, you get an update when anything news happens. So, you know, the new schemes come out, these new standards, you get an email when all the dates are sort of due, all sorts of different things to do with ELMS. You get an email straight to your inbox, whether you want to read it or whether you don't. Hopefully it's going to keep you up to date with things as much as possible. So yeah, the Future Farming blog, it's called. It's definitely worth signing up for. And if there are questions on that, again, let's get to it at the end, or you know, get back to me privately. So local nature recovery, the second part of this upside down triangle. So before, local nature recovery was kind of going to be its own sort of scheme that DEFRA were going to build, and they were piloting it and they were testing it and all that sort of stuff. And I think what they've come to the conclusion of is actually what they're going to do is they're not going to create a new scheme. They're actually going to stick pretty much countryside stewardship as it stands in local nature recovery. But what I have deciphered from DEFRA, from my event with the NSA, was that they're kind of still going to make it based upon more localized goals and ambitions, so farmers can get together and work towards a common goal. Hope you guys have sort of, you know, worked through countryside stewardship. There's lots of different schemes, like I want to say standards again, but it's not the right word. Parts of countryside stewardship you can apply for, GS4, whether it's bird mix, whether it's capital grants, whether it's you know, heaps of other stuff. That's pretty much what local nature recovery is going to be, but with an added on sort of localized goal. So again, farmers can get together and work towards something, and they're definitely trying to feed sort of extra money into those sort of things. Obviously, you know, they're chopping and changing it, and again, trying to stay up to date with it is a job in itself. But I think, you know, having localized sort of goals is hopefully going to be beneficial to farmers. So we need to watch this space on that one, I think. Landscape recovery. Now, this is for, you know, big landowners or farmers that all want to get together to sort of have a collective land mass of either 500 to 5,000 hectares. So the initial focus for this scheme was for biodiversity, water quality, and achieving that net zero goal. Now, they're big projects. I know a lot of it's more aimed maybe towards the RSPB or National Trust and things like that. It's not to put farmers off, you know. If you want to come together and work towards a common goal, I think that's, again, really awesome. And with landscape recovery, I believe there's quite a lot of private funding going into it as well. So, you know, it's definitely worth thinking about if you are, you know, a big landowner as well. I kind of brushed past that one because it's one of those big ones that, yeah, I think there's, yeah. So we're going to the stuff that I think is really applicable to you guys, and stuff that's, you know, very current and very new, and I think can definitely benefit sheep farmers and mixed farmers as well. So the animal health and welfare scheme, so it's just been launched. The scheme is open now, and it's enabling farmers to access free vet visits, consultations, whatever you want to call them, to create a health plan. So you can get, for a sheep farmer, £436 for a vet visit. You can get £522 for a beef cattle visit. And for me, much like all of these schemes, it's about how you can utilize them to benefit your business profitability. So for me, I'm getting a vet out and I'm going to go, right, how can I reduce the amount of wormer that I'm using? How can I improve my lamb survivability? How can I reduce, you know, if any of your lamb indoors, watery mouth, all those sort of things? I'm sure we know, but being paid a lump of money to get a vet out to your farm to improve that health and welfare, for me, health and welfare is then hand in hand with that profitability of your business. So again, it's there to access. You can literally just Google health and welfare scheme, and you can apply for it now, and it's open. So I'd definitely make the most of that. Get a vet out. If you know, maybe getting a different vet out might be a good thing to do. Someone different, a different set of eyes, and focusing on something that your farm might be struggling with, something to overcome. For me, it's all it's definitely coming down to that reducing those bought-in inputs, so wormer, but also then to reduce that worm resilience and stuff like that. And I'm just going to shut my door. My girlfriend's just cooking dinner, I think.
Josh might get some dinner now.
Hopefully she's cooking some dinner anyway. Well, we'll be lucky. Sounds like it. So this next one, here we go. Farming Equipment and Technology Fund, FETF. That's what it stands for. So it's broken down into 2 sections. It's currently open. So it's broken down into 2 parts: productivity and the slurry scheme. And then you can also apply for animal health and welfare items. Productivity and slurry scheme. That's a lot to do with better management of slurry, how you're applying it to your land, spreaders, also drills. There's soil management tools in there. There's a whole array of different things you can apply for. And it's the same with the animal health and welfare items. So EID tags, sheep handling systems, weigh heads. There's some of those EID guns, worming guns, vaccination worming guns, which then collate to the weight of the ewe, so you're not overdosing on your wormer and stuff like that. So there's heaps of different stuff in there, and I'm not going to list them all. Please go on there, Google it and have a look. There's a great big long list of different things you can apply for. The things that I would say is that you can apply for as many different bits as you want, and you'll see if you go on the website that each item has a point system beside it. And the point system is based on the eligibility of that piece of equipment meeting the objectives set out by DEFRA. So the objectives are: improve agricultural productivity, contribute to improved animal health and welfare, encourage more sustainable pesticides and fertilizer use, improve air quality, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reduce unsustainable use of extracted water, and encourage sustainable management of woodlands. So all the things that are on these lists are working towards those objectives. The points on the right hand side of them are how high it scores on their list of objectives. Now, if you apply for more than one thing, basically your points will then be averaged. But again, you can apply for as many different bits as you want. All you need to do to apply for it is you must have a SPI number, you must be registered with the RPA, but you don't have to receive BPS. So for me, if you're a contractor or something like that, you can make the most of this scheme as well. Now, I will encourage farmers not to get that sort of shiny new technology, haze of them, and we're going to go buy this, we're going to go buy that. Only buy what you really need, which is going to benefit your business, which is going to make you more efficient, more productive, more profitable. Looking at those tools, identifying them. I work with a lot of arable farmers that love a big shiny tractor, and you think, Christ, did you need to go and spend that much money on that? Could you not get something a little bit cheaper? But exactly the same thing applies for this. What's going to help your business in the long run? Because it sounds great getting the grant, but you still got to go and find the other 60% of that money. So it's got to be, for me, it's got to be beneficial to the business. And what is actually really good, and going back to kind of DEFRA's new sort of attitude of how they're approaching this thing, if there is something not on the list that you think achieves their objectives, and that you would like, you can actually feed that back to them, and they're not necessarily going to go, right, yeah, we'll put it on the list, but hopefully they will consider it. And I guess if lots of farmers are saying the same thing, they probably hopefully would consider putting it on there. Countryside stewardship. Now for me, making the most of this, and there's especially bits in countryside stewardship, if you're not already got a scheme, or if you've got a current scheme you want to do more, the applications are open for mid-tier and higher tier until the end of April. That will be then for schemes starting in 2024 January, and then that year you can start claiming some of that money back. And again, it's building these parts into these schemes into your business in ways that are going to help your productivity, but also potentially taking bits out of the farm which aren't going to make you as much money if they're not on a countryside stewardship scheme. So the mid-tier is more out the box standards. So best one I always think of is GS4, those herbal lays, you're getting paid a certain amount of money to put them in. And it's also good tucker for your livestock as well. The higher tier agreements are agreed with Natural England. they're a lot more strict and they're a lot more specific and tailored to that business, that farm. Again, it's utilising this to benefit your business in the long run. You know, a good example I've got, and hopefully this might be applicable to you because it's pretty good. A client I've worked with, big cattle farmer, finishes a fair few cows and sort of has a suckling herd. It's a main enterprise really. He is in quite an arable heavy area, and his neighbouring farm had a really big backgrass problem on a couple of the fields. So what my client has done is he's gone, right, well, what I can do is I want to rent that field out for you. Oh, don't worry, I'll drill it with everything that I want to put in there, and I'll pay you rent for it. So then what my client's done is he's applied for countryside stewardship on this new rented ground. He's put GS4 in there, and then he's getting paid that countryside stewardship income for it. But then he's also putting really good food and nutrition into his cattle. So he's now got more ground. He's getting paid. You know, he's covering his rent just with the payment for countryside stewardship, and then he's using that to manage his cattle enterprise as well. So it's about trying to work these sort of opportunities into your business. So we've kind of gone through, tools that we're trying to help farmers, use to ensure the future sustainability of their business. We've kind of gone through the new schemes that are available. But now I wanted to kind of go through, why I'm here and why I'm talking to you guys. So at the minute, we're working on this massive project called the Future Farm Resilience Fund, and we're calling it Pathway to Profit. And if you haven't heard about it, it's basically free consultancy available to farmers. So it's a £32 million fund from DEFRA, which there are 17 other agricultural advisors that are working on. So we're one of them. And so again, it's enabling those farmers to access this free advice. So the aim is to reach 32,000 farmers by 2025. This is actually going to be the last round of this funding, which is then going to sort of expire in March 2025, I believe it is. So we've got a lot of work to do. So what I want to talk you through now is kind of what we're offering as part of this scheme. And I'll tell you how you can apply for it later, because again, it is totally free to you guys. So first step, what we do, and I've done maybe 6 of these farm business reviews now. And almost every farm, pretty much every farmer has gone, thank you very much, because it's enabling farmers to see their business in a different light. And it's all sort of based on that financial stuff, which, I've gone over the importance of it and how it's not always the most sexy topic to do, but bloody hell, it's so important, especially at the minute. So what we do is we take 3 years of your accounts, and this is an exercise you could do yourselves as well, to be honest with you. But you take 3 years of your accounts. We add your net profit and depreciation back together, and that gives you sort of an idea of your profit available to the business. And then we're looking at, your personal drawings, any tax paid, any loan debt, HP debt that you're repaying, and then your CapEx. And what that allows us to do is understand your profit, and then what you're using that profit for, that profit requirement. And it gives us an understanding if there's a profit surplus or profit deficit. Because what's really important to remember is that your BPS sits in your net profit. So once that starts being reduced, whittled away to nothing, that profit surplus is then starting to be whittled down. And then if you've got loans that are sort of ongoing, if you've got HP agreements that are ongoing, you need to reinvest, where you're finding that money from. So then we look at your BPS income from 2020, because that's the figure that is being reduced each year. And then with that profit requirement table and then that BPS income, we're starting to understand how your business is going to be affected by 2028. And so what I've highlighted in yellow at the bottom there is that business, Mr. Joe Bloggs, if his profit stays the same and his profit requirement stays the same, to stand still, he needs to generate an additional £33,333 by 2028. And that's net profit, it's not easy to come by. So again, we're having a whole view of this business and what we need to find and how we can start assessing or addressing this money by 2028. So what do we do with this info? So we come around, we sit down with you at your kitchen table. We take the time to really try to understand your business, and then we try to give you the best advice we can. And this isn't like you're doing everything wrong. This can also be, bloody hell, this is fantastic, let's do more of this. Just really trying to give you that, overview of what's happening and how we think your business can make up that loss, because again, it is bloody scary. We have some pretty stark realities, but we're on your side. We want to work with you. It's free pot of money that we want to just get as many farmers on board with as we possibly can. And sheep farmers are my favourite, which is why I'm talking to you guys. So how will farmers benefit? So we talked about the business review, and that's that first bit. But what's really great about this fund is that we can give you 4 interventions. So that business review will be the first bit, but then we can come and give you additional advice on technical, business, or environmental sort of consultancy. So whether that is doing cash flows, budgets, business plans, whether that's coming out and giving you specific environmental scheme advice for your farm, whether that's helping you do things for the SFI, like those nutrient management plans, integrated pest management plans, things like that, we can come out and do those. Also technical farm advice, how can you grow more grass? How can you reduce the amount of fertilizer you're using? How can you, do lots of different things? It's all things we can come out and do, and it's, again, for free, so why not make the most of it, Right, we're getting to the end now, and thank you very much for your patience. So, top 3 takeaways. Plan for your future, budgeting, business planning, formalising it, writing it actually down somewhere, whether it's on a document on your computer, stick it to the wall, do something with it, and using KPIs to measure your performance against that plan. Because if you start highlighting that, where you've achieved well, where you've underachieved, let's make a plan to how we can, get where we want to do. Participate in the Future Farm Resilience Fund, what we've just kind of gone through there, and I'll share the registration link in the chat shortly. I'm sure Larry can also send it out in an email, which would be brilliant, Larry, please. But participate in it. It's free. We're all over England, and you can access it. And use the tools and schemes at your fingertips. There's SFI, we've got local nature recovery, countryside stewardship, farming technology, whatever it is. We've also got that animal health and welfare scheme, making the most of those because they're pots of money. How can you utilize these schemes to benefit your business? The measure to manage. I think that I'm going to share that in the chat shortly. So I'll put that, the link to register for the FFRF in the chat in a second, once I've got off this presentation. But there are all my contact details as well. I'm on Twitter, that's my email address. That's also my telephone number. Please give me a call if you just want to chat through something. Send me an email, I can call you. We can organise meetings. If I'm not in your local area, I do travel quite a long way, but we've also got consultants all over England. So, use us whilst we're here. And that's me rattled away, I think. Darry, thank you very much. Stop sharing.
Thank you, Josh. Wow, it's complicated. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I almost.
No, you've done a great job in giving us an oversight of it. But honestly, as a farmer, it boggles, doesn't it? The amount of schemes, the whole business planning element makes
exactly
common sense, because that most people should be doing that anyway, or if they're not, then it makes absolute sense to do it. But the various schemes are very complicated.
They really are, and there's lots of different standards in there. But I think the first step that's most important is assessing how it's going to impact your business and whether it works in with your system, and then utilising that. Because even if it doesn't work in your system, how can you potentially make it work in your system? You know what I mean? But yeah, there are a lot of standards to keep up with, and it is quite black and white. And hopefully, as time goes on, it's going to become more and more black and white. But I have heard from clients and other colleagues that have applied for the SFI that it is a relatively simple system to apply for it as well. So if you're already doing stuff, why not, make the most of it? Yeah,
sure. And I suppose that's the crux, isn't it? Because, a good example, I suppose, is that animal health and welfare strategy. Because, again, having a health plan, as in a proper health plan that actually has real stuff in it, as opposed to tick box exercise, makes a huge amount of sense. But if the hassle of getting that 450 quid is too labor intensive or too cumbersome, then you might as well just pay the ready vet and get it done anyway. And I suppose that's where the balance lies. And in those sorts of schemes, does it allow for, because good modern large animal vet practices have evolved to be providing farmers, a consultation that is spread through 12 months of the year. And that can range up to, 50 quid a month or 100 quid a month. Will it allow for something like that, or is it just that one visit?
I think it will, because from the way it's presented and what I've read about it, it's a pot of money that farmers can access. So you can access up to £486 for sheep. So if you got that 486 quid, what's stopping you from just incrementally paying a vet to come and see you, like you say, every month, bi-monthly, whatever it is, as long as it fits in with that budget, or, you know, stick it in your budget for something bigger.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And obviously the other part of that is if you can use it for strategic screening, you know, because fecal samples for Johne's or various other things, borders disease testing, new stock, it's all stuff that actually adds into that whole equation, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And then I guess, you know, with the Johne's and stuff like that, if you're selling stock or whatever, that's only going to make your stock more valuable as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So you know, do you have a gut feel, Josh? The whole structure of these schemes, there's lots of them, and you obviously need to be pretty switched on, or you need to have very good consultants to enable you to apply and get all of those things in place. How much realistically are they going to be able to cover that 33k loss that's going to show in that example you have there?
Yeah, it's definitely starting to sound like it's getting there. I don't think we can ever expect just to be able to hold our hands out anymore and be given something. That's the start reality, you know, and with my kind of Aussie and Kiwi hat on, I know it's different industry and all that sort of stuff, but having a business that has to make sense is imperative now. I don't think you're going to be able to mitigate all that loss, but I think that, you know, by utilizing these schemes that are available, you know, using that soil management plan, for an example, you know, not using it as just a tick box exercise, but actually understanding what's going on with your soils, what you actually need to be doing to make it more productive, not just sticking the same fertilizer on that you've used every single year, sticking it on the not so good bits of land, sticking it on, you know, whatever. That's hopefully how you're going to then mitigate that extra bit, if that makes sense. So using what's there to then make your business more efficient and more productive.
Yeah, so a combination of paying for some of the input costs and some of these, but also production efficiency, I suppose.
Exactly.
Things getting it there.
And I think what we're really starting to think about now is that mindset change of, we're not just farmers anymore, we've got to be businessmen as well. We've kind of got to be soil scientists, and we've got to really start to understand exactly what's going on with everything that's going on in the business. That attention to details, you know, going to be so important now and forever, I suppose.
Yeah. So if I'm a 60-year-old farmer without anybody really by my side to actually think through this, I'm not going to really face this very easily, am I?
You're not. And that is why that Future Farm Resilience Fund is there. You know, we do talk with lots of farmers that are worried and scared and don't understand, and it's free. We want to work with you. We want to help you. I know I definitely do. And it enables you to understand what's going on. The real drama at Dowie is that the people we're seeing are the people that are very, you know, proactive. They're on Twitter, they're on websites, they're on things like this. But then it's also what I get scared about is, you know, when you're driving down the dark, you know, the back alleys of places, and you think, Christ, that old boy there, I bet he doesn't know what's going on. You know, it's how you access those. So yeah, that's the hard bit, and that's what we're trying to do. You know, we're doing some more in-person events now and things like that, where we're trying to reach these farmers. That, you know, we're doing one at Melton Mowbray next week. Hopefully we get some people there that might not be on the internet but do want to go to the mart, and then do want to come to go, yeah, what's going on.
Yeah, no, well, great that it's there, really, isn't it? So there's a few people joining us as we go through. If there's any questions, please put them on the Q&A at the bottom there. I'm sure we can ask Josh to tackle them for us.
Absolutely. If I can't answer them, I'll know someone that does, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm assuming, you know, we've got a few that have already come in. Things like, you know, the fund, the FE, whatever it's called.
FTEF, yeah, we're just calling that one.
FETF.
Yeah.
That's obviously for all new stuff, and there's no ability to deal with secondhand in there, is there?
It's all new, and you do have to buy it, so it can't be financed. Well, there are ways around it, but yeah, so it has to be new, and then you can get, I think it's up to 40%, and again, it goes down to the objectives of DEFRA, and that item that you're buying achieving those objectives that DEFRA have set out. And for me, again, like going back to that shiny sort of metal syndrome, avoid that like the plague and just buy stuff that's going to help your business in that long run, and
so would that cover things just like, because the fundamentals, we used to talk about it, a stick and a dog for farming. Well, these days it's more, electric fence wires, solar panel. Does it cover those sorts of things or not?
Do you know what? Let me pull it up and let me see. I don't know about electric fences. I do know that there definitely was FTEF.
Yeah, so don't worry too much about it. But again, I'm just thinking, from the lower hanging fruit out there, rotational grazing is one that we can pretty much all do and actually have big step changes in utilization and what we do with our land.
100%. And I guess that's what's really good about it, because I had a colleague that sat on one of the in-house DEFRA webinars the other day about the FTEF, and they were very proactive about saying, listen, if there's not something on our list at the minute and the farmer wants it, here's our email, send us what you want. And I can hopefully maybe I can put the email.
Sure. And again, as you've urged people, using those basics is far more important than going for the flash auto drafters and stuff, because really it's very difficult to justify some of those.
Yeah, exactly. I've put the email address for the inquiries with the RPA for if there isn't something on the list, you can apply for it. Or you can send them an email and ask about it, And again, if there's enough people asking for it, hopefully they'll consider it.
Yeah, grand. We've got a question, Clive, up in Aberdeen. So you've got people from Scotland listening into you, Josh. So,
lucky them.
So yeah, thanks, Clive. So again, Josh, would you have any comment on the potential impact on the internal UK market? Because these schemes, England's, I suppose, the furthest ahead. Wales and Scotland are tracking through in terms of following on what's going on. They won't look the same, or they may look the same, but there'll be some quite fundamental differences in them. Is that going to distort stuff, do you think, or not?
Yeah, if we're talking about market level, I guess we could be doom and gloom and look at it that side of things. I guess what we're seeing at the minute with egg production, what we're seeing with horticulture, that sort of thing. If there isn't the funding, if there isn't the availability of money available, if there isn't money available to farmers, are farmers then going to start thinking about not producing as much, doing that sort of thing? So potentially it could. I, however, am optimistic that there is still a very sustainable future for farmers, especially livestock. I'm talking livestock farmers, all the Innovis customers, livestock farmers in the future, especially if you're running an efficient business. If I've understood that question right, I want to be optimistic, and I want to think that hopefully markets are going to clue up and understand that it costs money to produce food, so it needs to be paid well for as well.
Sure. Yeah, because certainly, obviously, Clive's in Scotland, and we farm in Scotland as well with some of our farms. And, the various schemes we've got, there's an environmental option now that we've opted not to use at Southfield at this stage, because it just doesn't quite work into the plan we have for the farm. Now, that probably will change as things evolve, as the equivalent to the standards that you've got in the English one come through. That may well change with what we do there. We are using woodland creation schemes. We've got 38 acres of trees going in now and fencing and stuff. So still trying to build the credentials of the farm up. But I think it's just important sometimes to actually have that blueprint of where your pathway is for the farm, which comes back to your business planning again, doesn't it? Of understanding what it needs to look like and how much of an imposition it is sometimes or isn't, what's harmonious and what isn't.
Exactly. And again, like you just mentioned, formalizing that, getting it down on paper, and then understanding, okay, we can, if you're planting trees, can we make money out of it? And then is it going to improve the survivability of our lands? Is it going to then potentially grow more grass? It's sheltering that bit of grass a bit more and keeping the heat in the soil. It's all these things that you have to start thinking holistically and outside the box, almost, of, right, I can get paid for this from the government, but then it's also going to help my business, achieve those other things that we're, our other objectives,
Yeah. We've got a question from Christine. Christine, like many others with her daughter, running a flock of 52 ewes, Suffolk ewes, on rented land, and that's typical of many in the UK. So they're unable to make some of these improvements to the land because obviously short tenure, I would imagine, no security. So apart from the health pathway, what else, I suppose, can Christine work on for and other smallholders the same?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Real tough. I guess that the first thing I'd probably be doing is I'd be going to talk to my landlord and outline what you're trying to achieve with your 52 Suffolks and what you and your daughter are trying to do, and then how can they help you and both you work together, be more profitable. I think there are, again, with the FTEF stuff, you don't need to be claiming BPS. So technically, then you don't need to be owning the land, or you don't need to have the whatever it is, the claims on it. But if you're registered, we've got an SPI number, and you're registered with the RPA, you can then apply for stuff. So maybe there's some stuff you could utilise in there.
Yeah.
And
I'm assuming, Josh, that Christine would be equally able to access the FFRF side of things for business planning.
Absolutely. So as long as you've got an SPI number, you can apply for the FFRF as well. Absolutely, Dowie.
Yeah, and that's crucial itself, isn't it? Because I'm assuming, that Christine or the family, probably there's other jobs and this fits into some of that. So actually trying to get a plan with that. And I suppose that's typical of lots of farms in terms of, land availability is quite difficult. Whether this actually calms land prices down in terms of their value and their rental value in some parts of the country, because it needs to, because if people actually realize what the true cost or the income they can get from it, they need to pay less for land rental.
100%, exactly. And hopefully it's going to level the playing field a wee bit, isn't it?
Yeah. And Josh, because you're based in Cambridge, you're in the heart of arable country, really. And although you're a sheep man, you're a sheep man at heart. Are you seeing new opportunities with sheep in those rotations and those sorts of opportunities for people there?
I think so. Again, it's coming back to that mindset. I actually was sitting down with the farmer last night for a cup of tea, and they, were just chewing the fat a wee bit, but they said they definitely have seen more sheep around over the last few years. I've only been here for just shy of a year now. I wrote a thesis for my master's on integrating livestock within a crop and rotation and the economic benefits, and there are so many economic benefits to doing it. So I think it's growing. I hope it's going to grow. I think that farmers are going to have to go back to a mixed, or should start moving back towards a mixed farm. And that for me doesn't mean that the arable farmers then got to go and set up and buy 100 sheep. That could mean that, someone who struggles for winter food can't then pair up with that arable producer in the winter when he's got cover crops. There are so many different ways you could integrate these livestock. I think it's I've heard it's growing. I reckon it's growing, and I hope it grows, is my answer.
Okay. Well, look, everybody, I think that's the questions done. We have recorded this. It will go on to, you will get a copy of the recording. Everybody that have registered will get it. And it will be there as a resource on the Innovis YouTube channel as well for people to get to. Josh has kindly given us his details, so you can contact him directly, get ADAS involved, and get on the sort of the journey with this, I suppose. But yeah, it's an interesting or a quite a challenging few years ahead. But I suppose we can't hide from it. We've got to embrace it. That's the strategy we're heading on as a country. There will be differences between the devolved element of it, but overall, there is going to be this pathway towards sustainability, towards land management, towards public goods. So we've got to use what we can. But more than ever, as Josh started the conversation, having business planning, solid business principles, is probably more important than ever, isn't it, in trying to get that through. And the beauty with some of this is that you can actually get these guys like Josh in to actually do that for you, which is really valuable, I think. So
for free. It's free.
And free, yeah, absolutely. So, Josh, thank you ever so much for giving us your time.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully you might get a salad for dinner now.
She's in the shower by the sounds of things. I don't know if dinner's cooked.
Yeah, and we are hoping that we will be in Groundswell this year, Innovis, and we are hoping to have Josh be available to do some clinics for people there. And I'm sure you'll be there as ADAS anyway. So, and in lots of other events, obviously, as we hit the coming season. But we've got lambing to contend with before then, all of you. So
I wish you luck. I'm jealous.
Yeah. So yeah, remember how crucial ewe condition is, everybody. Skimping on ewes at this stage now is really bad practice. So, those ewes need to be in condition score 3 going into the lambing fields if you're lambing outdoors or on parks. and getting, some of the metabolic profiles done using some of these schemes just to check that everything's all right. It's quite a good tool. But yeah, if you get that right, then all the other problems disappear, unless you've got disease, which is another story, obviously. But anyway, on that cheery note,
Terrific.
have a good evening, everybody. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Steve. Nice to see you.